All right. We're going to go over the first requirement in the PCI Standard Council's guidelines. And this one is about installing and maintaining firewall configurations to protect cardholder data. 1.1, establish and implement firewall and router configuration standards that include the following. Then 1.1.1 explains what that is. A formal process for approving and testing all network connections and changes to the firewall and router configurations. So that's what the requirement is. What the procedures are that it's asking us to do is to inspect the firewall and router configuration standards and other documents specified below and verify that these standards are complete and implemented as follows. And then what it asks us to do here is examine documented procedures. So every company should have documented procedures on what they do with their firewalls to verify a formal process for testing approval of network connections and then changes to the firewall and router configurations. These all have to be approved and they have to be in documents. For a sample of network connections, so if they've got many in their network, you're going to need to go and then interview responsible personnel, so probably the network administrators, and examine those records to verify that network connections were approved and tested. So that begs the question, then why do we need to make sure that network connections are approved and tested? Well, firewalls and routers are key components of the architectures that control everything that comes in and everything that goes out of your network, right? Okay. And these devices are software and hardware devices that block unwanted access. They manage authorized access into and out of the network. Now, when it talks about authorized access, this is access of humans and software, right? So configuration standards and procedures will help to ensure that the organization's first line of defense in the protection of its data remains strong. And they call it the first line of defense because, quite frankly, your firewalls are the first line of defense for a human being trying to get in or software trying to get in, okay? So then, a documented and implemented process. Isn't that interesting? Not only does it have to be documented, but you also have to implement the process for approving and testing all connections and changes to the firewalls and routers. And this will help to prevent security problems caused by misconfiguration. So if you've got a document, it says this is what it's going to be, then that gets approved. And when it gets approved, that's what gets uploaded each time to the routers in the network, and so you know that you've got a standard implementation, and it doesn't vary, right? So again, if there's an error or a problem, you can make a change to that document and then upload and the implement, and it will be uploaded to all of them. Well, you'd have to upload it to all of them, but that's what would happen. So what we're trying to do is avoid problems of misconfiguration of the network router or the firewall. Without formal approval and testing of changes, records of the changes might not be updated. So do you remember when that last patch was put on? Was it approved? Those are the kinds of questions that need to be addressed here, and which could lead to inconsistencies between network documentation and the actual configuration. So in other words, what they're trying to say here is what you have documented should actually mirror what's out there in your real network, right? And so if something needs to be updated, then you put it in the documentation first, and then you go and you upload it to all of the different pieces of your network. In this case, the firewalls is what they're talking about, but you'll see that this spills over into servers and things of that nature. So it's the same precautions that we're going to take, but that's the first one. Now, 1.1.c says identify a sample of actual changes made to the firewall or router configurations, and then compare those to the change records and interview responsible personnel to verify the changes were approved and tested. Again, very important that all of this happens in a documented fashion. And again, this keeps misconfigurations from happening because you don't forget about one or the other.